Hi friends, it's Michelle from Michigan, Quimby Cottage Knits. Thanks for coming back today. You can find me at MK Hansen on Ravelry or at Quimby Cottage on Instagram. It's April and it's snowing. Not a little bit of snow, but quite a bit of snow. I haven't lived in Michigan. I'm from Michigan originally, but I've lived out of Michigan for a very long time, and I haven't lived in Michigan in a very long time. I sort of forgot how mean Mother Nature can be in Michigan. We had this nice tease of spring. I have some forsythia cut and brought into the house, and now outside all of the blooms, anything that was blooming is just really kind of want. So it's a good time to knit. I thought I would start today by telling you this is my Flet sweater. I have worn it before. It's wool folk. It's cozy, and when the weather looked very snowy and yucky today, I decided to go ahead and put that on. It's probably, fingers crossed, the last time I'm going to wear it this season. And actually, if I was in Cincinnati, which is where I moved here from, I would already be washing my warmest winter sweaters to pack them up for the season. But here, I don't know. I do have quite a few sweaters, but I have a few favorites. I might start washing some of the ones that I didn't wear very much this year, and get ready to put those away for the season. But it's just really hard to get excited about summer when it's snowing and it's April 17th. So Flet, wool folk yarn. So thought I would start today. I don't know if I've talked about it before, but sometimes I am asked by some folks to do a little bit of finishing work or sometimes fixing your mistakes. So I did someone sent me a baby blanket and they accidentally snipped a hole in the baby blanket. And so I mended that, but I've already shipped it back to the person. So I will put some pictures in here. This is just anecdotally that I do that sometimes for people. So someone sent me this cute little baby sweater in pieces, and I put it together and blocked it. The yarn has quite a bit of acrylic in it, so it doesn't block super neatly right here, but it's still lovely. So I put it together. I did all of the seaming, put it all together. I sewed these little buttons on. I found these usually the person sends buttons, but they were eager to get it done, and I'm going to ship it back today. So I thought I would just go ahead and use buttons from my own stash. These are vintage buttons. I have a pretty good vintage button collection. I thought those turned out really cute. And then I picked up and knit this collar. But I just wanted to show you some of the finishing work. I always am delighted when it works out just perfectly. And I just want to show you. See how when I put these together, see that where it looks like the gray goes right into the blue? I just love when the finishing comes together like that. And it's just one for one all the way across, and it was just so beautiful and perfect on both sides. And I just, small joys out of things like this. And the gray here, it just goes directly. It's easier to see on the other side where it's blue and gray together. And then I wanted to tell you a little trick. I didn't video any portion of putting this together, which I probably should have done for you. But row gauge and stitch gauge are different. And in this sweater, and this is true of most sweaters, this row gauge here is shorter than this stitch gauge, which is longer. So when I put this together, instead of doing a one stitch to one stitch here, so one stitch of this, which is stitch gauge, because see the fabric is worked down this way, and this is row gauge here. I picked up 1.5 stitches here to 1 stitch here. And that's how I eased the sleeve in so that it fit nicely. But I think it's just super cute. This is called the Ginger Snap sweater. I'll link it for you, as I always do, in the little description box below. But it's a cute little sweater, and this is absolutely unisex and super cute. It looks like it only comes in one size, but super cute little, probably like toddler sweater. And one of the things that's great about knitting for kids is that you know, you can give it kind of early and you can always just do a little cuffs, and these hand knit sweaters stretch and last a really long time, which is nice for those of us who are in quarantine right now, because I don't know about you, but I was watching Isaac Mizrahi the other day on Instagram, and he said he thinks he's gained 7 pounds since the quarantine and he needs to flatten the curve. I don't really have any plans to do that actually, but I do have access to a lot of really good food here, and I know how to cook it, so there's that too. Okay, so I thought we would also talk about some of the things I'm working on myself. This is called the Broken Rib Sock, and I love it. I just wanted to start a sock. I always have a sock going. I told you last time when I was working on that shawl, at some point I did not have anything going other than the shawl, and I didn't have anything to knit on that was easy. So I started on this yarn. This yarn is beautiful. I love it. It's called Van Gogh's Bedroom. It's by Dragonfly Fibers. The colors are so fantastic. I really love them. But when I started knitting this, just knit, and I got a couple of inches on it. I didn't really like how it was flashing and the colors were sort of pooling all in one sort of area, and I just didn't like that. And I also started thinking it was just a little too busy. So I decided to bring in some white, and I tried a little bit of color work. I didn't really like how that showed up. I thought that if I had the solid white with this busy background that I would really like the color work, but I didn't. So I ripped it back and then remembered that I had seen this pattern and had really wanted to do them, but had never done it before, and decided to give it a try. And now I just love it. I just love it. I love how these socks look. I love the fabric. I love how it goes. And even though there's quite a bit of, there's a lot of sort of green and gold here. And if I turn it around, you'll see there's kind of a lot of pink here. I don't mind that so much. It's broken up by the white. And so I really am enjoying it. You can see it also here. And I could have broken this up by I could have just done a solid by using the inside ball of the tail and then the outside of the ball, and then switch every other row, and that would have changed this too. It's sort of like you're blending the same ball of yarn, but it's that same idea when you're running 2 skeins of a hand knit and you want them to blend together. I could have done that, but when I just came upon this pattern, I decided I loved it so much. And then there's a tiny part of me that really enjoys knitting with partial balls of yarn. So I had this partial ball of white left over from some baby booties, and I decided to go ahead and go with it. So I'm really, really loving these. And if there's going to be a fair, I think I might put these in the county fair. So we'll see. And we'll see how they work out. They look wider than normal, but I'm using my regular normal stitch count. So I think that might be because of the broken rib. The pearls give you a little bit more stretch. So I think that's why that is. And then I did a tubular cast on. Do you see that? So it looks like the stitch comes up and then rolls right over to the front. And I love the tubular cast on. It's a little fussy, and there are some people who might think it's too fussy to do for a sock. But to be honest, the way that I learned how to do this was just always casting on my sock with a 1x1 tubular cast on. And I love it. And now I have it memorized, so I can just do it. And why not make socks with all the fussy details that you love in them? That's the joy of making our own things, right? We can be the boss of it all. And I have a small satisfaction of wearing socks that I know are quite beautiful and that I made myself. But you don't have to do it my way. You do it however you want. I'm just telling you how I do it. I like to say all the time, you're the boss of your knitting and you decide. And you have to remember too, you're doing whatever your brain space is, whatever you can accommodate, whatever you're doing, you do you, and nobody does it better than you do. So there you go. And I'll do me. And sometimes I'm not so hot at it, but I'm just going to keep trying. So this is another Melissa shawl. I just finished one in blue. I love it so much. I'm doing another one. This is sort of an orangey red. It's hand dyed. My brother-in-law bought this for me at a fair in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the sheep was grown there. It's a CMV Corriedale Romney. I'm not a spinner and I don't really know all of that stuff. I can tell you this feels, it's bouncy, but it's also a tiny bit scratchy. My plan is, because this is gonna go around my neck, my plan is to knit this up and then I'm going to put it in a little bit of water with a cap full of hair conditioner, because sheep hair wool is essentially hair and conditioner will go soften it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that with this and just see if I can make it a little bit softer. But if not, I'll still probably wear this just, you know, kind of on the outside of my coat or something. It doesn't matter. I love the knit of this. It's super satisfying to me. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. You're just knitting, and at the end of every row you cast on 6 stitches and bind off 3. That's what makes the cute little bobble. And then you knit to the end. And after that shawl with all the complicated lace on both sides, I'm really glad to be just knitting some good garter, and then I have some nice stockinette going, which I'll show you in a minute. And it just feels really satisfying to me to have some comfort knitting. I do sometimes like a challenge, and I would say probably that's what that sock is about, is that it's not hard at all, but I do have to pay attention. One row I'm doing one thing, one row I'm doing another thing. It's a 4-row repeat because it's a broken rib, so it's not difficult to do. For me, a sock is something I've been doing for a long time, so it was really easy for me to roll into that. That's my most challenging knitting at the moment, and I really love it. Anyway, this is a very satisfying knit. I enjoy it a lot. I highly recommend it. It goes on really nicely and easily, and I love that about it. It doesn't matter how you wear it. It's super easy, and it takes 2 balls. The pattern says 2 balls of DK weight, and the other 2 that I've made were both DK weight, but this one is an Aran weight. I think it's a hand-spun, and she said it was an Aran weight. I just went up a couple needle sizes. This is a size 10. I'm just knocking it out with a 10 and just making a fabric that's squishy and nice. And when I block it, when I blocked the blue one, I ran wires through each of these, but I didn't pull it. See how garter is super squishy and you could pull it and make it sort of flat or not? I left it really squishy. I think that that's what the warmth is about, and that squishiness is, I think, one of the features of garter that we really like about it. And I think it loses some when we pull it really hard like this. Then we have that sort of striped look. So I left mine really squishy when I block the other ones, and I'll do the same with this one. It's very satisfying. I highly encourage you to do it. If you have stash that you're not using, 2 balls of anything, and you can just gauge up or down with your needle. Super easy, super nice, super satisfying. I think it makes a great gift for anybody. And in these days where we don't really know things, what we can know is that this is an easy project. It's a great project. It's great for yourself, great as a gift. That's what we know. Let's stick with what we know, right? And the last thing I'm working on is my Sayer top. It is a tank top, and the front, or it's reversible. So one side has a high boat neck and the other side has a V-neck, and I am clicking along. The pattern is a Pearl Soho by Julie Hoover. It calls for 2 lace weights held together to get a DK gauge. I'm using a DK to Sport weight yarn. I've made quite a bit of progress on this, but I think I'm going to have to make some adjustments because I didn't check row gauge, because I feel like I don't need to. Don't follow my great ideas. Anyway, these decreases I followed, and I put my little markers in to remind myself of where I did the decreases. And I used a row counter as well, just in case. But I now need to have 16.5 inches, and I still need to do 2 more decreases on this. I'm supposed to be doing them every 14 rows, which is from here to here. So I'm definitely going to have to condense those a little bit in order to get to 16.5 inches, because I think I'm at 13.5 inches right now. So I'm going to have to speed up those last couple decreases. So because of that, what I'm going to do when I move to the other side is I'm going to leave these markers in so that I remember exactly where I did those decreases. And then when I do the other side, I'll be able to match them so that the decreases will match perfectly. It is sort of an A-line top. So this is mine. I'm pretty happy with it. This is unblocked. It has a little bit of a garter edge at the bottom. So it's rolling right now. It's unblocked, but I'm fairly pleased with the way it looks. Can I just show you the back? Do you guys know what rowing out is? It's when your purls are a lot bigger than your knits, and sometimes there's kind of big gaps in between your purl bumps. Usually that's caused because your knits and your purls are different. There's a little bit more fabric in a purl, a little bit more yarn in a purl, and it can, make gaps in your knitting. And I'm just really pleased that I'm now to a place, it's taken me a long time, friends, where I'm not really rowing out on the back of that. And I think it's more obvious in cotton or linen yarns. They don't have that spring to them that wool does. So I just am patting myself a little bit on the back here at how that looks. I joined, there was a break in my yarn, and then I also had to join a new ball. So there are two places where I've done this. I used the clasped weft join, and I like that a lot. It's super easy. You're weaving in the ends as you go. All I have to do later is clip these after I block it, and I'll be ready to go. So I like the clasped weft join when I'm doing new yarns. So it's one of my favorite joins just in that way. I like it a lot. It's neat. It's easy, and it doesn't leave you with a bunch of ends later and trying to figure out what you're going to do with them. So I like that. It does leave a small gap of fabric that's a little bit thicker. You can kind of see that right here. Once it's blocked, I think it's a little bit less obvious. If I was smart, I would have done that on the edge, which I did do where I had the break. It just happened that that's where it was. I am really bad at doing my joining on the edges of my sweaters. I don't know what's wrong with me. It would be a lot neater if I joined always on the edge, but I don't know. I think there's like this thing in me that doesn't let me waste the yarn. I don't know what that's about. So that's it. I just had a couple things I wanted to talk to you about. This is going to be fairly short, I hope. We're chugging along here. I will tell you this. I bothered to get dressed today, and then I decided to podcast. So I got dressed first and then decided I would do a quick podcast. I've been primarily staying in my pajamas. I do go running every couple of days, and usually this would be my running day, but because of the snow, I'm not doing it. I'm a fair weather exerciser at best, and I possibly would go on a walk in this weather, but maybe not even. It's fairly depressing. I mean, it's fine. It's going to encourage me to do inside things instead, which is good because let me just tell you honestly, the maid has not been showing up this week. I don't know what her deal is. The laundry is pretty caught up for the most part. There's a little bit of laundry. I try to do the Clean Mama schedule. Do you guys know her on Instagram, Clean Mama? I like her schedule. I like her routine a lot. But it is sometimes really hard to stay on that schedule when everybody's around me and they don't seem to be doing anything. And so sometimes I feel like it can look like I'm not doing anything. But of course, when I'm not doing anything, I'm making clothes from scratch. I will say another thing, and maybe we'll talk about this later. I am a terrible stasher, and nothing showed me that more than these 30 days so far of not going out at all. Terrible stasher. I have a bunch of single sock yarns, just one ball of sock yarn, which is great. I always can make socks out of that. But friends, if somebody in my house wanted to learn to knit, isn't that cute? Nobody here wants to learn how to knit. But if they did and I wanted to show them how to knit, ideally I would have 1 or 2 balls of worsted weight or DK in my stash so that they could make something like a scarf or a cowl or something. I don't have that. I have a bunch of partial balls, but I really don't have projects. I don't have enough yarn to make projects. So let's talk about that next week, or next time maybe. But what I do want to say is, I think it's good if you find a yarn that you love. It still needs to be a yarn that you love. I think it's wise to buy 2 or 3 balls of it in a thicker weight other than sock yarn. I always give myself permission to buy a ball of sock yarn, but it might be wise to buy 2 or 3 balls of a worsted or DK, because that can be a hat and scarf, or it can be a hat, a cowl, and mittens, or something. But I really can't shop. I can't shop my stash because I don't have much. So maybe I'll show that next time and we can talk about that. I bet some of you are I bet all of you are probably better at stashing than I am. Which isn't to say that I don't have yarn that I've purchased. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at stashing. So let's talk about that next time and see where we go with that, because I'm going to need your help. Anyway, I hope you're all great. I hope that you continue to knit, because that's the right thing for us. If we have the time to do it, we should be able to do it. And I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy. And I have to tell you, the snow, I would tell you that I wish it wasn't snowing where you are, but the truth is, it's a lot easier to be in quarantine in snow than it is in nice weather, right? Because in nice weather, where do you want to be? Outside. So I hope that you guys are all well. Thanks for stopping in. Bye.